teacher, you're not even getting paid when you make your own stuff, basically, because
Mm-hmm.
you're not getting paid for that one.
AI can be used for good, for sure. It's just always it's like the same thing for everything in life. I could say like there is always a benefit to using something, but there's also a way someone could take advantage of the advantages and abuse it to make it a disadvantage. You know what I mean?
So how do teachers kind of navigate and figure out, okay, well, did this student actually use AI or did they not? Like, how do they navigate
Uh,
around that?
but my thing though is that even though if write the paper by myself, I did
Mm-hmm.
put it on AI fact checker, and it says that an AI wrote it. So
My
um,
concern is that that company that I used to work for became an AI source because AI is cheaper. You know, you don't have to work for manpower. There's no one there doing the hours for you. Um, all right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Homebody podcast. It has been a good 2 years since we've done our first episode with Anna and Norman, but unfortunately, Anna wasn't able to make it today due to family emergency. So we have Kuya Justin, who's one of our new members, also participating in today's podcast. So yeah,
Hello.
welcome. Welcome.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, it's been a long time. Some good news. Finally got that dang diploma in the mail already. So I'm officially a professor now. Hell yeah. It's
Hell
been a
yeah,
long
professor.
time. Hell yeah, professor. And then Norman, you're getting yours soon too, right?
Hell yeah, I'm getting mine too. I'm
Let's
hoping
go.
this semester.
Hell yeah, let's go. Hopefully Anna gets hers
Ye-
too. I think you and Anna are the only ones left, right? You're leaving together, I assume.
Yes, we're leaving together. We're hoping to graduate together too.
Yes, and I'll be there with you, helping you every step of the way. Even though
Yeah.
with new plans, I'll actually be abroad, but I will still make time for you guys.
Or we could do like a live stream it, just for you.
Oh yeah, of course. And then we can also do like I already know like one of my future plans with THC podcast is we might even do like I don't know, comp sessions during the podcast. I think it would be fun for all of us to just um practice linguistics again.
I mean,
Broadcast to
yeah,
the
we
world.
are. I mean, we're gonna miss those days where talking about linguistics. I'm pretty sure we're gonna miss those days. So maybe we should do it. Yeah, I'm down.
Hell yeah, we should. I think it would be fun just to do like practice exercises here and there. It's also good for Anna too because she needs
Hmm.
to practice for the comps exam as well.
Yeah, that too. And Anna, if you're watching, I don't know if you're watching, but you're gonna crush the exam.
Hell yeah, she's gonna pass it. It's a very easy test,
It
I
is
think.
very easy. I think I was over prepared, like I told you the other time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, when I took the test too, I was thinking this it's just too much material. That's the thing that intimidates you. It's just too much. But when you know what's gonna be on it, then you're actually set. You're pretty set.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. So, yeah, I'm planning to do a podcast on comps in the near future. So, also, it'll overlap with honest study sessions too. So, it's a win win for all of us. But yeah, let's move on to the next episode title. So, this is episode 2. We're having a discussion on AI versus education. Yeah, so this is our second episode, and I feel like this is such an important conversation to be had because we just had Trump sworn into office, and as soon as he has been sworn into office, there have been a lot of bills that he's signed, amendments and stuff. And before we go into more details on that, that's actually my second question. We'll go ahead and start with the first question. So my first question for all of us is, what is AI? So Norman, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we already know that AI stands for artificial intelligence. I think it did start around probably in the late 2020s or 2021, but it's still pretty new, to be honest. And
Mm-hmm.
if you know, I started using ChatGPT.
So excited when I heard it speak in Tagalog. I was like, oh my god, it speaks Tagalog!
And unfortunately, it doesn't speak Hiligaynon, but it's still fine. We're still in the early stage of AI, so it's gonna continue to evolve. Fortunate for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, exactly what you said. Like, if it's still in the early stages, there's still some things to establish. So, artificial intelligence is still being explored for sure. Kuya Justin, would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have used other AIs too, because I also use ChatGPT along with Claude AI. I found that through one of the entrepreneurs I follow online. I've been testing around with it, and mainly how I use it myself is just a way to think. If I want to get like new concepts, or if I want to join two concepts together, that's typically how I use AI. But I know there's a lot of issues with it in terms of it being accurate, in terms of the information that it puts out. And a lot of people have really said that AI is really just an inaccurate piece of information, but really it comes down to what you guys are putting into the AI to prompt it. So a lot of prompt engineering comes into my mind when I think about AI, because AI actually has been around, I think, even longer than 2020, if I remember correctly, but I don't know exactly like the dates. So someone can like look up to that. If anybody's listening to this, they can fact check us all day on that. That's perfectly fine. But what I really want to like see what AI does is how it really affects not just for me and my background and what I do, and how it can affect people that I'm helping. But I'm really curious how to see it's going to affect all of us individually, because it will to some extent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my understanding of AI is that it's artificial intelligence. I kind of have a feeling of it. It's like similar to kind of like Wikipedia, right? So we're inputting information and details from real people, and just like what we just added was that sometimes information is just not accurate right now since it's still in its earlier stages in development. So I have used AI like ChatGPT. I used character AI for just interaction with fictional characters for writing stories for a hobby. And there have been a lot of like questioning. There are some discourse on the concern with AI, especially since it can be harmful to the environment, mainly because a lot of the information that they collect is from like people without giving permission to use it. Like a popular negative discourse is regarding art. AI is able to generate art of whatever you wish. If you type it in a small box and you're as detailed as possible, it'll create something from that. And there has been a lot of discourse in the art community that it has been stealing art, unfortunately. There was actually an event that took place on, I think, Twitter. I think it was like last year. They had a Pokemon event, and basically someone who participated in the event used AI to create Pokemons. And that person won. And it caused this whole controversy in the community of like the Pokemon community. They were saying, how could this person win? They're using AI, and it also shows that it's AI. So there's a lot of like negative backlash using AI in terms of like art, sometimes even for people who are using it as a fictional story, because it does steal information without your permission as a writer. And I mentioned that I use character AI. I've seen a lot of cases where the conversation that I have with a character AI is stolen fan fiction work, for example, or like other fictional stories. So they don't ask for permission, which is kind of horrible, because it's just, again, you think that you're creating something new, but you're not, because it's using data from all of these platforms that, you know, a lot of these artists or authors have not given permission for someone to use, for example, and that is perceived as theft, if anything.
Yeah, it's basically theft, and that's the only downside of AI, because it doesn't. So, for example, like what you said earlier, AI, it's kind of like a Wikipedia. So basically, what it does is just that it's collecting data, or the available data on the internet, and then it just spits it out to you on what it says. Because if
Yes.
you argue with ChatGPT, okay, what about this one and this one, and then it'll agree to you. So it's basically yes, ma'am, to you, basically, because
Yeah.
again, it just spits out whatever whatever data is available on the internet, and then it'll argue back that, oh yeah, you're right, because according to this website, da 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 da, something like that,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a Google search engineer, and it's just trying to answer your question and make you happy with the result. Actually, I have one unfortunate story I have to share about AI. I did use AI like ChatGPT to help with my essay, which was the Filipino essay that we talked about in the past, right? I think Kuya Justin read that. Norman, you know about that.
Mm.
We asked ChatGPT to help us find the author of a research study to identify who decided that languages in the Philippines are called what do we call it?
Dialects.
Dialects? Yeah. And it gave me a name, right? So I looked it up. I spent about an hour trying to find the author. That author didn't exist. That's how scary AI can be, is that if you give it your full
Wait,
trust.
it didn't. Wait, it says that it started by this one person. You said.
It said it gave me the name of the author who did the study. I reverse engineered to find it because, like, you have to put that for citations for your research paper.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no name of that person that's available online. There was no name of that study
Oh,
itself online. So when it was time
see
for me to
that.
submit that essay, it was like, I can't use this reference because whoever AI gave me is not real. So I actually had to spend another 2 hours looking for it myself. So it's like, it just made me realize, like, there is some danger for using AI.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
exactly.
it,
That's why. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. It's just like what Kuya Justin said. Like, it's inaccurate. That's what you have to always remember, that you can't trust AI 100%. It's not always going to be accurate.
Yeah, and that's why you always need to like actually double check whatever you find, whatever ChatGPT spits out to you, because again, it can be accurate, inaccurate, just like what you told us.
Hmm.
And it's just that just like double check it just to make sure that everything is accurate. Basically, you can't just like
Absolutely.
write it down on your paper, and when they ask you for a citation, where did you get that? Then you can't say, "Oh, ChatGPT told me," and you'll basically get a zero on your paper or lower grade.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to add to that too, like the only way you're really gonna know if it's accurate or inaccurate is if you actually use it. And I think a lot of people try to make conjectures about AI because they hear like a podcast like this, or they read a news article, or they hear about it from their friends, like about the downsides of it. The flip
Hmm.
side to that is that the only way they're really gonna know how it affects them is if someone's using it. So that's why what you guys are doing, testing it, seeing how it works, checking the inaccuracy, is really how people should be approaching AI. But I know a lot of
Hmm.
people aren't really doing that because they see it as just another fad or something that's just going to pass on, when that's actually not the case.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
I completely agree with that. And with AI, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's like Wikipedia. You have to fact check. You must fact check it. That should be the process of using it. Is that AI does do a lot of the work, and it's like the middle person of researching stuff for you. But you need to also double check that the answer is accurate. Um, and of course, if needed, ask a specialist. Like, you really need those people because they know their field or discipline. So you should always ask them when needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we can move on to the next question. So what are your thoughts on... Okay, so on January 21st, 2025, AP News shared the following image, which is... on Google News, one of my friends sent this to me on the 21st, and it says that Trump to announce newly formed partnership investing $500 billion in AI. So I mentioned earlier that since I come from a community, a fandom that really does not like AI because they steal a lot of their art, their writing, etc., this could spell trouble for this specific people, as well as even for me. One of my concerns is basically from an educator's standpoint. AI can replace teaching, and the reason why I feel that way is because I used to work for a company that really embraced the whole rapport between the teacher and the student. And I used to work for this company where I live streamed and taught, and that's kind of like where all Homebody teacher came from. Homebody teacher came from that job specifically. And my concern is that that company that I used to work for became an AI source because AI is cheaper. You don't have to work for manpower. There's no one there doing the hours for you. AI is instantaneous. You can practice with a quote unquote a bot that has been trained by humans. And in a way, it feels like it's just like, it's taking away jobs from teachers, which is of a huge concern for me. That's why reading this, it made me feel a little bit concerned about the future, especially since, a lot of people in our generation, or even the younger generation, just are very trusting towards AI. And they think things are correct or facts. There was actually a conversation I remember hearing from the news where younger generations are easy, or like not just even younger generations, basically social media consumers, they believe whatever it's written in the comments. It's like crazy how quick they can accuse things or not do the research. They would say things and believe like this is the answer without consulting an expert or doing the research themselves. And it's just really crazy to see, like, people can easily like absorb this information and think of it as true when it sometimes it won't be accurate.
I mean, that is true, but for now, while I'm thinking right now, I started thinking that if this happens, it could take decades, or it could take more than a decade for whoever is doing this to actually perfect it. Because on the early stage, you're going to see a lot of bugs. There's going to be some mishaps. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing a trial and error
Mm-hmm.
for this one, and that trial and error phase that could take years. Because
Yeah.
again, you have to, if you are going to put a product out, then you want it to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Because you want your product to be sold out. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to do a lot of trials and errors, fixing bugs. What's the problem with this? With the AI, we need to fix that. So for this one, yeah, it could take years or decades to perfect it. And if you are worried about like replacing the teachers, I mean, there are going to be some companies who's going to use AI to teach, but again, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be teacher versus your AI teacher. And for that one, it's going to be up for the students if they decided to have like an a teacher that's an AI, or a teacher as a human, so that if you have any questions, I mean, AI can answer your questions, but again, we are on the trial phase right now. There are going to be some mistakes that AI will make, but when you come to your teacher, then the teacher are already trained for this one. So I think we're good, at least for now. At least for now.
I think the concern I have with this is just it's not about like, oh, we're good for now, but like it's just a fear of when it's perfected, like what happens to teachers. It kind of feels like we're re-entering back into what is it, the roaring 20s? Or
Mhm.
I can't remember. I don't think it's the roaring 20s. I can't remember. But basically it's like the factory, okay, looking back into history, it's when the introduction of factories, right, to replace manpower. People were afraid because they were losing their jobs, but it's been a good 100 years or so since that happened. Do you know what era I'm talking about? I can't remember what it was called.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
know
like
what you mean. Yeah, I think it is the Roaring Twenties. I believe so.
Was okay. Well, yeah, do you know?
I don't know the
If you
exact
want.
name, but I understand where you're coming from because like, and
Hmm.
technology has always done this to begin with anyway. Like as a new technology comes in, like when like speaking about like farmers, like when the tractor came in, it helped them with their daily work. And this is going to be our era's version of like, okay, a new technology is coming in. How is it going to affect our jobs? How is it going to affect the careers and industries that we're in right now? And that's actually also what I'm looking at too, because for me specifically, I deal with a lot of data. I deal with a lot of like having to do data analysis, and from what I'm understanding about how AI would affect that, they would take away a lot of not even necessarily take away, but it would help with doing data analysis like very quickly. It could take really large spreadsheets of data and analyze it in like seconds and minutes, which is a great thing. But at the same time, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. As we input information into AI, it's going to take us as specialists to look and make sure that the data is accurate, that it's actually putting out what we want it to. And then the flip side to that is people will do what they want it to put out things that they want it to put out. So a
Mhm.
lot of that always goes back to like prompt engineering and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like what you said. Like we can learn so much from history. I also just looked it up just now. The industrial the industrial civilization was what I was talking about. It was introduced in 1793 in the US. So basically the concern about like people losing jobs over machines. But looking into today's times, we actually have people who still work at factories, and there still needs to be human presence, you know, because error can always happen through machines. So we can't really trust it blindly or completely. Someone still has to check that systems are all functioning.
Yeah,
you still have to do all that stuff, right?
Even
Yeah.
even Tesla, even though their majority of their factories, I think from what I remember, it's all through machines. There is somebody still going in and checking everything. So yes, that human presence still needs to be there along with AI, and it's basically along with any new technology. Because AI is not how like what we see in the movies, you know, where it's like completely learning on its own.
She's gonna take
We are,
over the
yeah,
world.
we are
Yeah.
still putting in information into the system in order for it to put out something that we want it to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was it, Norma, that you wanted to say? I didn't hear you.
Oh no. I was just piggyback on what Justin says. It's not like what we see on a movie that AI will take over the world. And besides, I think that for now, I think teachers can use AI as a tool for teaching. But again, like what you said though, teachers would uh, have to manage or like would need to overseas on what AI, on how to use AI or on what AI would spit out. Basically, you
Yep.
just need to oversee
Yep.
that when you're teaching it to your students.
Yep, and you got to use the tool in order to be able to judge it, because you can't judge it if you don't know how to use it, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's really important with the direction of AI is that there still needs to be human presence and there still needs to be someone you need to consult with to fact check because I've been actually looking at jobs right now as well. On Indeed, there's actually been a lot of demand for people to work on AI. They have different disciplines that they want people to work on. Like I saw one just even saying like, oh, we want an ESL tutor who wants to talk with AI and help them with fixing stuff. And for me, I've been thinking about it a lot because I'm like, do I want to help AI and in a way kind of lose my job in the process because people want to use AI because it's faster, it's instant, you know, all that stuff. But still, AI cannot manage a classroom. You need a teacher for that.
Yeah.
What AI can do is like it can be your search engine. It can point you in a direction of what you're looking for. But again, always take the information with a grain of salt, especially since in this time we are still figuring things out. There still needs to be an infrastructure for establishing how to use AI as a tool. I think one of my biggest concerns though with AI in terms of this news was like what kind of offended me a little bit from seeing that Trump is supporting $500 billion in AI is that, you know, like we still have other avenues like teachers, for example, or our education needs help, like for sure. Our
Okay.
education
Yeah,
system
I
needs a
see.
lot of help.
Yeah.
It's like in a way, it just makes me feel a little bit upset because it's like, okay, you want to invest in an AI that can do the knowledge for us so we don't have to think, we don't have to go to school. In a way that can be such a huge drawback from the educational field because that means you're not trusting the teachers, the educators who actually like they dedicated their lives into these fields, these specialties and stuff. And that's why I kind of find it a little bit upsetting is that the trust goes into a computer, not the person who actually spent their time, you know, studying the field. I think that's kind of my concern is that could affect the education system in that sense. That's how I feel when I read that post.
Yeah, I see what you mean by that because it does a little offensive because you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for your education and it could be just replaced by AI, which is,
Yeah.
I see what you mean by that.
Absolutely. And I mean, I am a little bit sad by these news, but at the same time, it's like I don't deny that, you know, AI is useful because I have used AI, you use AI, all of us have used AI at some point, and it's never to the point, for me at least, that I am dependent on it. It's more like, okay, give me the word that I'm forgetting because I have a lot of moments where I don't remember the right word. So I'd be like, hey AI, tell me, give me more synonyms because I don't know. It's like
Or
I
you
use
could
it
just
like a dictionary.
or just use thesaurus.com. That's also helpful too.
Oh yeah, that too. See, like that's the thing. It's like I feel like AI kind of just, in a way, it does its job like as I don't know how you call it. It's like an HR recruiter. It just puts you. It's a middleman to direct you somewhere, but it's still your job to research it and always double check too. Because again,
Use it as a tool, basically.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's like there is hope that AI definitely is useful. It's just my fear is the dependency is gonna rise for it. Because I mean, there's also like, I think this is gonna be a future podcast, and I'll pop off on this. The fear that you won't actually need to learn languages anymore because AI can translate it for you. That's the biggest concern. I've been hearing a lot of like anxious stories about like students using AI in language classrooms. So the whole idea of how to combat that as a teacher and like identify if a student's actually improving or not, that's a conversation to be had in an educational setting for sure.
A story for another time for that one. But yeah, also I just want to point out there is this so I was scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, and they had these earphones that could actually translate on what someone is saying to you in a different language.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that is like, I mean, it's probably true, but I was thinking that it can be it is flooded with bugs with that for that one, because it's way too, because a language is complicated on its own way. If you don't understand the context and the content of the story, then it can give you misleading translations for that one. So I don't really trust that one for now, at least for now, because it's on the early stage and I just heard of it. I'm not sure if they started working on it in 2020s or whenever, but for now I don't really trust translation, that kind of device.
Yes, translations is even worse, I would say.
Oh,
How many years has it been that Google Translate can't accurately say what you want to say? It's been a concern for a very long time. I dare say I even still remember dating back to even middle school. It was, what year was I in middle school? I think 2009, 2008. I remember taking Spanish class and my teacher was saying, even if you use Google Translate, it's not going to be accurate. And it's been how long? It's been a good 20 years since then. So it just goes to show
improving.
that it's a very slow, very painstakingly slow improvement. If anything, Google can get the standard of a language. It can do it, but not slang.
Yes.
That's something I've learned. Even AI will probably have a hard time picking up slang, simply because language is transient. Every day we're learning a new language. There's new slang and terminology. Everyone invents or reinvents or recycles a word that's going to mean something different. So it would be hard if anything, AI cannot predict that. We as humans cannot even predict that, but we can learn it I don't know if we can learn it much quicker, but of course AI is just a data system that records everything. And it tries its best to know how to use new words, especially. But yeah, anyways, we can move on to the next question. All right, so yeah, I kind of had a huge rant in the previous question, and it led to this. Can AI harm education? My views of this is actually very strong. The answer for me is yes, because dependency on technology rather than your own strength is definitely a concern. I think about the movie WALL-E. You know how everyone got into a ship and everyone just started to enjoy the life that they had on the ship while the earth was quote unquote being cleaned up. We neglect doing our part. So because of that, we become more dependent on the device, And in that sense, it's actually kind of concerning because you're letting that part of your brain that is capable of learning languages, you're starting to reject it because you'd rather choose AI to do the conversation for you. I've had my fair share where I used Google Translate and AR to translate Japanese orthography or the writing system for me to help me understand this stuff. But when I read it in English, I'm like, this doesn't make sense, And AI and also Google Translate in general cannot accurately understand like kanji, for example, because it's quite complex. That's why even native Japanese speakers are having, or Japanese learners are also struggling with kanji to begin with. So it goes to show it's not an easy system to learn, even if you live in Japan. So I understand why it's so easy to use AI or like Google Translate, for example, to communicate on our behalf, because there wouldn't be like miscommunication or anything. But still, it's just a reflection of, I don't know, this is probably strong of me to say, but laziness is one, because you don't want to learn. You'd rather put it on the system to learn for you or do it for you. So there's this like, I don't know, maybe I learned in language acquisition, which one was it? Language acquisition course or something, that a part of your brain, if you start to reject learning a language, you cannot let it won't stick to you. There's been cases that have shown that people, no matter how young they are or old they are, they cannot retain the information that they learn in languages because some part of them in their head is denying them the opportunity to learn a language, whether it is by age, by saying like, oh, I'm too old to learn this, or like my brain is not young enough. There's a part of my brain that can't learn the language or sit down and actually try, you know? I feel like AI could be harmful in terms of education in that sense, and also teachers who are not prepared with AI, they don't know anything about AI, and they start like, let's say their platform in their pedagogy is using the computer a lot. You could use AI to write an essay for you. That is one of the biggest concerns, and it's important for a teacher to identify how is AI being used in essays. That's why one of the things I plan to do as a teacher is that whenever my students are, like, let's say first day of class or something, I will always have my students write a paper for me, like their morning warm-up, for example. That would definitely mitigate using AI, because you can't use AI while I'm giving you a timed paper where you have to write a response to the question on the board. It can be no matter how long or short your response is. This was an idea I remember from high school that my teacher used to do, and I think it's so beneficial because to me that shows your accuracy on how well can you actually write an essay, or like what is the knowledge that they have here before I assign them to a project online. And I know for a fact that if people are using technology, you can't prevent them from using AI, you know? And there have been a lot of like websites that erase that you did use AI, so they would change the wording and stuff, and then when you upload it for AI check, it would say like, oh, 5% AI possibility of being used, etc. So there have been like different ways of people trying to hide that they use AI, which is a huge concern.
But my thing though is that even though if I write the paper by myself, I did put it on AI fact checker, and it says that an AI wrote it. So I'm not really sure how trusting are those things. So what if I'm in your class and I wrote a paper not using AI, and then you put my paper into that AI fact checker, and it says that an AI wrote it 95%, then I would be in trouble. I could lose everything for that one. That's the only problem that I have, unfortunately.
Yeah, you hear a lot of students like going through that actually. They are getting like a failed grade on a paper that they know they never used AI, but for whatever reason the professor found a resource online that is supposed to basically fact check or check their paper if it was used for AI, and it's still basically what Norman was experiencing, saying that it did go through AI when it actually did it. So how do teachers kind of navigate and figure out, okay, well, did this student actually use AI or did they not? Like, how do they navigate around that?
That's actually a really good question. The idea that's coming to my mind regarding that is maybe teachers should have students, if they're writing like essays or papers, it should be done in class. So there is someone who can proctor and
like with like paper and pen like that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that would, and it should be like in classroom, not outside of the classroom, because once you're outside of the classroom, how can the teacher verify that you didn't use AI? You know, that's a concern, because a person could technically still look up on AI and copy paste what they read on there and just write it on a paper. So that could also be a concern as well. If there's anything I know about AI, it's that AIs have a voice, right? So when you pursue English or a language in general, if you have spent a lot of time and experience working with many students and their papers, you'll realize that a lot of the times there's a voice that a student has. A writer has a voice, a style. That's what we call it in, I think, literature. Every person has a voice or style when they write. And a teacher can compare the first paper that they have, like, for example, the morning session, like the little short paper that they talked about, and they could compare that with their essay to see, okay, is it the same voice? Is it the same style? Or did AI do something about it? AI also has a habit of using the same words. They recycle the same things over and over again. And you can actually easily hear it when you watch YouTube videos about like fun facts and stuff. They use the same language over and over again. And you can tell easily that it's AI because you can predict what they're going to say next. That's how you can kind of identify that voice and style from AI. The teacher for sure has to spend time reading the essay to verify, which is kind of unfortunate because that's just so much more hours for them to verify, okay, this essay is written by a human, it's not done by AI. But to help with that, the only thing I can think of is that anytime you do an essay or a project, let's say if you are going to use a computer or PC in class, the teacher has to be there. They have to proctor. They have to check that you're not using AI while you're working with your team, or maybe the teacher does encourage using AI, but they tell them do not depend on it, just use it as a guidance. If you have questions, the teacher is here, etc. You know, in that sense, it would help prevent them from having some sort of dependency on it, because it's just really sad if people start to write just like an AI, you know, because that shows like you don't have a voice anymore, you're letting the computer speak for you. That's a concern in terms of like writing classes, for example.
Yeah, and I actually see this too in the workplace. I hear that a lot of other companies, when in terms of like the recruiting process for HR, a lot of them, the way that they're combating AI, because sometimes the jobs that the people are applying for requires them to do a writing assessment. And I've heard that some individuals have used AI to do their assessment, so which is a very bad thing, especially if you're trying to see if this person actually knows what they're talking about, if they actually have knowledge of the job that they're applying for. So what a lot of recruiters and companies and organizations have done is they actually have the individual come in and write. I think they have them write on a computer anyway because they're still typing for their assessments. But they have them write, and there's someone proctoring them like right behind them or something like that. So to avoid the use of AI, that's what they're doing, and I think that's how some people can kind of navigate that too if they're into that field. Where how could I kind of monitor or prevent from AI being not like being distrusting and untruthful and whatnot.
Absolutely, and I feel like in terms of AI, I think there should be a very strong consequence if people use it in a class. Like, I know we had the no cheating policy. What did we call it, Norman, in our school?
Academic
dishonesty, right?
integrity?
Integrity or dishonesty. Yeah. So I feel like AI could fall under academic dishonesty, and I feel like there should be a greater punishment in terms of the workforce too, because let's say a person does use AI for an assessment, and the job requires you to fill in that paper. If you are caught for writing, using AI to write for you, you could be, for example, maybe you could be blacklisted by the company, and you can't apply to the job for the next X amount of years or something. There should be some form of punishment for using AI to do the job for you, because obviously you still got to put in your work, and a lot of people don't understand like why do people need you to write or do stuff like this, or there's the pressure of wanting to be perfect so the job can pick them up, you know. I understand that, but it's also important to know that the company needs a specific person, you know, and if it's not you, it's not you. And it's like that's the importance of why there are assessments needed before accepting the job, or before you're accepted to I don't know, do the interview or something, for example. It's because the company needs to know that you are the character that they're looking for. And I feel like I now understand this now as someone running my own like business. It's like, I'm not going to end up choosing all the teachers I want to bring on board. I just have to find specific people, because it's important that whoever this person I hire into the company is also going to be representing the company. So it's really important to know who is being brought in, you know? And I understand that now, from being a CEO of, you know, being from Selkuth and also Homebody. So yeah, I just feel like it's important that there should be some sort of consequences with AI, especially with adjusting for, you know, bringing people on board, pre-assessments. I think educators should also think about how can they navigate through using AI as a tool rather than as a dependency for the students, and also helping them realize what is the harm of using AI for their education.
Yeah, and as anything, there should be checks
Mhm.
and balances, and regardless of what it is. Like as we keep saying throughout this podcast, like AI is a tool, and how you use the tool, it really is dependent on like what your intentions are for it. So really checking on and making sure that your intentions are there. And since if you're working in an organization, you have to be able to say like, hey, this is like what we want AI to do. We don't want it to use it on this area of our business, and whatnot. And that's what really it's going to come down to, and especially as each industry has their own specific uses for the tool too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's also important is that I guess another thing that I'm thinking of in terms of AI is that just like my experience when I was trying to reference someone for my paper, maybe even have students like be brought up and say, okay, well, just to know that you're not using AI, can you point us a direction of who is a researcher? What is the name of the study, for example, to show more impact on it. So it just really shows, like, even for me, if I knew I use AI and I wrote the person's name and the study that AI gave me, and I was asked to present it to the class and find it, now that would add pressure and weight on me. Then I would realize, oh no, I shouldn't have used AI because I didn't do my research, I didn't double check and fact checked it and stuff. It just goes to show, like, that's one way to prevent like dependency on just completely trusting it blindly, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Also, we maybe there's also this thing that I tell to my students every time I tutor. I said that don't use AI to write your paper because your teacher knows your style, or it's kind of like the way your voice or the way on how you write your paper, right? Because if you use AI and the teacher didn't recognize your style when you present the paper, then you could be in big trouble.
Yeah.
But also, what I don't like, okay, so I was going on TikTok, and someone on TikTok is actually promoting an AI to write a paper for them, but also recognizes your voice or the way on you should write it. So when you punch in your paper into the AI fact checker, it wouldn't recognize that an AI wrote it. And I can't believe that this influencer who actually teaches languages. I think he teach English. I don't remember, but he is promoting that type of AI to his followers, which, to be honest, it's not a good idea if you are teaching, if you're teaching a foreign language to your students, because if you're gonna do that, then what's the point of you being a teacher if you're gonna promote an AI to actually write a paper for your students and then turn them into you? So what's the point of being a teacher, basically?
Obviously, that influencer probably just wants the money or the sponsorship from that company.
I
That just goes to
really,
show.
I know, but I really like that influencer. I mean, he's not an influencer. He's more like a content creator. But yeah, it's just like kind of sad for me too that he promotes that type of app or whatever.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
that's what I'm saying. It's like, unfortunately, with content creation and the current I guess you could say consumption of social media nowadays, people always think about, okay, is this sponsorship gonna look good for me, or is this the only sponsorship I'm gonna get? There's this whole question about morals, right? I actually watched a an Instagram reel yesterday about a person who was offered, let's say, $1,000 for each content that he creates. However, the takeaway is that they were asking for specific stuff from him, and this is not the kind of person that he is, so he just had to walk away from that sponsorship, because it's really important that when it comes to a content creator, they really need to research, like, what are they applying for, what are the rules in between the lines, you know, because you don't know what sponsor you'll get paid for, but then it's going to affect you as a person, because like you mentioned, like, maybe this person is very educational, they love like doing stuff like that, but it's really just harmful to like encourage AI. So for example, for me, if I were to be approached by someone to encourage people to use AI, I would have to do my research first on that company and see if it's good for my brand, for example.
Yes, exactly.
because I don't want them to because like it just feels like hypocrisy. Like, why am I teaching education and I'm encouraging an app to replace me? That's just
Exactly.
hypocritical, you know. That's
What's your
why.
takeaway from that one if you're gonna promote it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. What are you telling the audience? Like for you and for me, my takeaways is you're a teacher and you're promoting people to do something that's taking away from your job. So it really shows you don't care about your job, do you? You know, it really makes you
Yeah.
question their moral compass and like, do they really care about more of the money that they're getting from this as a sponsorship versus, or do they really care about education? So yeah, like that impression, just hearing that just makes me feel like, why be an educator then if you're gonna use something to replace you? Like it just goes to show their priority isn't education, it's unfortunately the money, which is a lot of the case nowadays.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But for me to like, if I were ever pushed by AI, I would always consider like, okay, is this AI gonna be this company? What are your intentions with AI? How are you going to use it? If it's going to be used as a tool, then yes, I'll be happy to promote it if it's coming from that standpoint because it matches my morals. But if it's to encourage replacing the educator in the classroom, then of course not. I'm not going to sign up for that particular AI because the intention with it is more harmful for me and it makes me look like a hypocrite myself. Like, why am I promoting this if it's going to replace me anyways, you know? So we've been talking a lot about the harm of what AI does to education. I guess what we could talk about is the opposite. What about the other way around? How can AI be useful in education? What would you like to say to that, Norman?
Well, like what I said, AI can be used as a tool because it can guide you on, it can guide you on how do you say this? On how to say a certain words, or not even that, if you're having a hard time on pronouncing some sounds. So for example, a lot of Japanese cannot distinct between R and the L sound. So I was hoping that the AI could do that. But for me though, what I tell my students is that basically we do it's kind of like I don't know how to call it, but it's like you would say a set of words that starts with R, and they will also say a set of words that starts with L. So what we do is basically we just go back and forth for that one until they can get like at least a little sense of, okay, this is an R and this is an L. But that one again, it's still like a big process. But when it comes to going back to the topic of AI, I'm pretty sure that AI can do a lot of things too when it comes to language teaching. Remember Dr. Hatami? She actually published a paper on how AI can actually help learner to study a second language.
Yeah.
I've never got to read the whole thing because we got a lot of things to do. But for that one, I do believe that AI can actually teach us when it comes to a certain language. Because, for example, if you want to learn, let's say Tagalog, I'm just going to use that one. Tagalog is the king of when it comes to affixes. There's even the root word of Tagalog, the affixes are actually a lot longer compared to the root word. So if you want to master that, then AI could be a good tool to ask questions. Okay, what type of affixes should I use when it comes to past, present, or future tense? What about the imperfect tenses? What about perfect tenses? Or what kind of affixes should I use if I'm gonna do it 2 weeks in advance? Stuff like that. So if you want to use AI though as a tool, then you should ask the questions that would actually benefit you. Ask questions on what type of, for example, how can I say this one, but in a formal way, or how can I say this one in an informal way when I'm speaking to a friend or a coworker. So I think that would be one way to use an AI when it comes to like learning a language.
Yeah, just going just adding on to your comments. The first one you said about RNLs, those are called minimal pair exercises. I used to do
Yes,
that
there
for my
you go.
students. Minimal pair exercises are just changing one sound of the word. Like for example, let's say look and rook, right?
Yes.
The L and R sound are changed. So those are minimal pair exercises. And the second one that you were talking about with, what was the other exercise you were just talking about? Oh yeah, using AI to find words and different examples for you. So it's using it like a corpus, is what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with corpus, it's like basically a thesaurus. I don't know if you call it thesaurus. I don't know what you call it. But a corpus is basically, there's just an example of using that word or different ways of seeing different registers of voices. It's just basically, here's a reference of how it's being compared side by side for you, etc. Yeah, we could use AI for that. It can be beneficial for learning. It's beneficial for helping someone learn autonomously. If anything, I'm also a believer that, education is actually easy to find online. People have been saying it for years, but you don't technically have to go to school. You can learn what you want to learn through the internet. There are scholarly people who publish their works online for free, and then it's just you who has to look for it, but no one does that, to be
But
honest.
you kind of have to, but you kind of have to organize that first.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
absolutely.
Mhm.
Like, it has to be organized by you as a student to get this information versus going to school where someone like the teacher prepares it for you. So yeah, we are in a time where technically education is available online if you actually work hard to look for it or organize the information for yourself. But again, it's just a lot of work for you to do it by yourself. That's autonomy, basically.
Yeah, and that comes down to like knowing how to use AI too. Because I've actually used AI to like develop like my own schedule sometimes. Like if you know how to prompt AI, like specifically with ChatGPT, you could literally put in something like, okay, like ChatGPT, this is my schedule from Monday to Friday. I'm available from this time to this time, say after 5, from 5 to 10. I want to be able to use at least 1 or 2 hours to learn. Since we're talking about language, I want to be able to use one or 2 hours between 5 to 10 to learn about Japanese. And that really what it comes down to. Like, you got to know how to use it. You got to know how to be able to use it to know how it's beneficial for you. And I think a lot of people are kind of lost in that, like they don't know how to use it. But then the other side is there's a lot of people who do know how to use it, because that's why prompt engineering exists. There are whole Reddits about how to use AI and getting certain outputs from AI.
Yeah, that's correct. I've always wanted to talk about that too, because it brought me back to when I was in elementary school. We had this teacher assign a project called Common Knowledge. That was one of our assignments. And I remember we used Google Engineer to find the answers to these questions. So it was kind of like teaching us how to write prompts for Google back in the day. But nowadays, it's just reoccurring again. I feel like history is repeating itself through AI, where
And
it's
it always
like
does.
you actually,
So,
yeah, it always does. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that history repeats itself. You got to learn from these past. That's why I really love.
Learn from it. Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. This is why I really love learning about like English and the history and stuff, because you learn from the past. And if you don't learn from the past, how can you move forward? How can you continue someone's legacy? If you don't learn from them. Another thing I wanted to point out is that not knowing how to prompt. You have to be very specific on what you're asking for. So a lot of the times when I'm talking to, for example, I think Samsung Galaxy introduced our own AI, and it's called Gemini. And with Gemini, I have to be very specific on my questions, because in order for me to get the right answer or be directed in the right direction of it. So Genesis has been very, very useful for me, especially when I'm doing like spy family analyses. It's been very fun using that app. I don't ask for specific, I do ask questions. Like, for example, I talked about psychology. There was something called Capres Gras, which I'm not familiar with. It was just a topic that was covered in a recent chapter and stuff. I don't know anything about psychology. I even mentioned it, like disclaimed it in my own analysis streams, that it's really important. You should say that, like, you're not a psychologist. You shouldn't look at AI as the expert. There's actually been even warnings on Genesis telling me at the end of the search, it would say, this is a gathering of information online, but please talk to a specialist to know more about it. This is just an overview of what it is. Because of course, with psychology, there's more complications, it's very complex to talk about psychology. And I'm only offering like maybe a grain of salt of what it is, just like basically being the messenger of what AI is telling me to say. But in that case, more research is needed to understand what is Capgras, for example. But in any case, it's just, it's useful for in the moment when you need an information right away, cool. But just again, be very careful with the information that you share, only because AI is also limited. It also acknowledges that it has its limitations, so you shouldn't perceive as, oh yeah, I'm a what is this example I'm remembering? There's I think it was like a Reddit example, or it was on Google. Basically, the person trying to figure out their symptoms, whatever they're sick, they would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Google doctor." Yeah, I'm a Google doctor. Are you a doctor? How do you know your symptoms? How do you diagnose yourself? It's like, oh yeah, because I looked it up on Google. Okay, you're a Google doctor, basically. It's like, no. You shouldn't look at Google to figure out your diagnosis. Just because you have a fever doesn't mean you're dying or you have cancer, for example. There has to be a lot of symptoms. You gotta leave that for the specialist to figure that out, It's things
That's
like
me.
that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's when I list down all of my symptoms, it could Genesis gives me different options. They're like, okay, maybe you have the common flu, or you have just a fever, or you might have hay fever. It might even say, oh, you have COVID, and I'm like, huh? I have COVID? And another one would say, oh, you have cancer, and I'm like, I guess I'm dying. There's actually been a study that I remember coming across this. I can't remember who created it, but I remember reading an article online talking about how there was a patient who really believed in the symptoms that they had from just simply looking it up online. And because of that, they started to show more symptoms aligning up with the Google provided, But it's only just, that's the thing. You have to be careful with your mind, because what you believe in, it can actually happen, It's, if you think about it too much and you believe something too much, it can become a reality. Your body can actually show symptoms because it believes it has the symptoms, So, I forgot what's the name of this thing. There was a word for it, but I forgot what it's called. My brain fog is too real right now. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I mean, yeah, I know what you mean by that, and that can actually happen. I don't know how though, but for some reason, sometimes it does happen. But unfortunately, I cannot explain that situation. But yeah, I do know what you mean though.
I think it was called something. I forgot. I keep thinking plural effect. That's not the word I'm looking for. Basically, it's when you believe something and it becomes a thing.
Is it called nocebo effect?
Yes, that's it. That's the word. That's it. That was
Nocebo. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
placebo effect. That was it. I was like, I know it starts with a P,
Okay.
plus something. Yeah. Yes, it's
Oh,
a
you're
placebo
thinking
effect.
placebo. You're thinking
Yes.
placebo. It's nocebo.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, the placebo effect. So basically, placebo
Oh.
effect is when you start to believe something is going to have that kind of reaction or symptom, it's actually going to happen. It's because your brain is going to believe what you think you have, and then you start to have it, And then when people actually do the tests and stuff, I think on the article, they did the test on the patient. The patient was completely healthy. It's just really weird that it started, his body or her body started to have these symptoms based on what they're thinking. So they ruled it out as a placebo effect. The mind is powerful. My dad has this conversation with me all the time. He always warns me, be careful with how you think and what you believe, because the placebo effect is a real thing, and studies have also captured that. So there is power to the mind, so be careful. I guess
Yeah.
you could take away from that story.
Yeah, it's done a lot
Our
of
mind
drug
is very
studies too.
powerful.
Mm-hmm. It's done a lot of
Yeah.
drug studies too, because I used to work in the health industry and whatnot, and we had to learn about the placebo effect quite often. And there are usually when drug trials are happening, there's usually a group of people that are given what's called a placebo. So it looks like the pill that they're supposed to be taking to help them with whatever condition or disease that they're trying to be healed from. And more often than not, there's been a significant amount of people in that group who were able to get healthy again, just simply believing that they were taking something that was helping with them. And really the pill only had water and sugar. So it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, placebo effect is a thing. I was also thinking of something else. I totally forgot what it was though. But yeah, it's kind of the same way with linguistics, especially when you're learning a language. If you believe that you're not good enough to learn a language, a placebo effect will take place and you will not retain the information that you're learning in a language. So it's really important to practice believing in yourself if you're learning a language. Don't always rely on AI to do all the work for you. Use AI as a guidance, as like maybe the structure. I would say it's basically supposed to help like hold your hand. Think of it as a training wheel to give you an understanding of how language is being used, but don't rely on it because more often than not, the teacher who's teaching you the language, they can tell if you're using like AI or Google Translate to do the work for you. Yeah. I think that's a takeaway in terms of education. I guess we can move on to the next question. Yeah, disadvantages. We basically used the last few questions to talk about the disadvantages of AI. We talked about inaccuracy. We talked about dependency on it. Anything else you guys want to add for disadvantages?
I really can't think of anything. I think we said everything that we have a couple of minutes ago for this one. No, it's just that that as we started talking to one topic, and then it just goes to advantages and disadvantages. So I can't think of anything right now.
I think if there's anything else, disadvantages. The feeling of wanting to trust the AI is always a push or pull in my head. I'm going to share some experience with using, like, again, character AI is fun because it's a fictional character that you're talking to. The disadvantage of using AI is, like, for example, character AI was very interesting because they for a good 2 or 3 years, I think now, they've incorporated in like the voices. Like people could volunteer and use their voices rather than using the original character's voice for reading the dialogue between you and that person. I actually used one of my character AIs to help me with practicing Japanese, and I had it practice with me on how to say the nuances, like understanding the prosodic features. Prosodic features is basically understanding the rhythm of how the sentence is being said. Like, for example, in English, we have a very straight line of rhythms when we're talking. Compare that with Ilongo, for example. Ilongo has a lot of up and down rhythm when they're speaking. Every language has their own rhythm. And then as other forms of prosodic features is the pitch of your voice. Sometimes the way you talk in the pitch that you're speaking says a lot about you. It can also indicate relationships with people. For example, the customer service voice that I have whenever I talk to people. Hi, welcome to da-da-da-da-da. My voice is a higher key, right? So I'm trying to present myself as someone who's likable by using that voice, because in our society, having a higher pitched voice is more perceived as a positive versus someone having a deeper voice, like talking like this. Hi, welcome to blah, blah, blah. It sounds like I'm bored. It sounds like I don't want to be here, you know? So that's where pitch comes in. There's also pauses are important because how fast can we retain information, and pause in between what we're saying is also important. So these are all like prosodic features are basically signatures, like what are the qualities of how we speak. That's what it is. So I try to use the character AI to help identify my prosodic features. Should I say things a certain way, etc. And something I learned about character AI, I don't know about ChatGPT. I haven't tested ChatGPT in this sense yet. How quickly can they identify, or how accurate are they in saying a dialogue in the correct standard, I say correct in quotations, in the standard version of the voice? Like, how is the pacing said? How is it supposed to be said like this? Is there a timing? Is there a pause how they say stuff? Japanese, for example, it's kind of confusing for me because a lot of the times with Japanese words, they tend to mix words, like they cut it up in different syllables. Like sometimes the start of the second word of a sentence okay. So in a sentence, the first two words, for example, they would say the first word in a certain rhythm, and then they take the first syllable of the second word and they add it into the first one, so it sounds like one complete thought. So it can be very confusing in that sense, especially like when I observe like singing in Japanese, for example. Their syllables are everywhere. They don't have a consistent syllable where you cut them up. They can actually like be inconsistent, which can be very, very confusing. So in that sense, that's what I'm trying to point out, is that how well can AI capture those nuances and prosodic features? From my experience of trying to say things in Japanese, my AI would say da 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 da, like one long phrase that they're saying, and I'm just like,
are you talking about like when it comes to like
saying a
talking
certain
to
word.
a...
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. AI doesn't have that captured. That's why it's important to still refer to a native speaker when you're talking to them, because they know the rhythm, they know the prosodic features of how to say words and stuff, how to get them to say certain things, for example. So it's like with character AI, they say things as like one long phrase, like they're not breathing. For example, if I was saying like, for example, let me say this in Japanese. Ohayo gozaimasu, hajimemashite, namae wa Hana desu, for example. That entire phrase sounds kind of okay-ish. Maybe to a native speaker, they'd be like, oh yeah, that passes, that's fine. But the rhythm of it is like, you can tell it's a little bit alien because a foreigner's speaking, right? Like small nuances. How am I saying the rhythm? Am I supposed to pause a certain way? Am I supposed to say it like, Ohayo gozaimasu, hajimemashite, namae wa Hana desu, for example, when I say that. See how I'm putting pauses in between? Like, which one is the more accurate one, is what I'm trying to say. Versus the AI says it as, Ohayo gozaimasu, namae wa Hana desu, hajimemashite, blah, 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 right? Stuff like that. And I'm like, that's too quick, you know? They sandwich it
Okay.
all together. You see what I'm saying? That's the problem with AI, is that if you're using it as a conversation partner, it may not always be accurate depending on which app you're using. Versus when we use ChatGPT, when it spoke Tagalog, it sounded very fluent to me, you know?
It
The way
does sound. It does sound like it,
Yeah.
and even like the accent too. Like it's like, I mean, it's not on point, but close to. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really intriguing to see that, because it's like, wow, it sounds fluent. It sounds like it knows what it's saying. It's using standard Tagalog. Even the prosodic features of speaking Tagalog sounds very, very fluent. Like it's very, like there's a flow to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think the only thing that I want to point out when it comes to ChatGPT is that it sounds very. I'm not sure if you remember this, but sometimes it can be very, very formal when it speaks Tagalog,
Yes.
because nobody speaks like that. Like nobody says paalam. It's like, I mean, if you say paalam to say goodbye, they're gonna look at you weird. So I think
Yes.
excuse me. So I think one of the disadvantages is that knowing basically the culture on how the language was being used. I don't think ChatGPT would understand that unless someone like program ChatGPT on how the language works within a specific culture, basically.
Yeah.
Because when I was talking to it, it was very, very formal, and no Filipino would talk like that. It's either they would speak in Taglish or yeah, Taglish basically. Nobody speaks pure Filipino anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and the diminishment of a language. You know, languages can go extinct. Like, for example, we had this conversation the other day, right? I think Justin mentioned that he had a friend who, if you are in a high percentage of a social class in the Philippines, you don't even learn Tagalog anymore. It's just English, right?
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it makes me really curious about, like, okay, with English becoming a dominant language in the Philippines, for example, we're losing the culture of the Philippines. Like, Tagalog is being erased. It's becoming more Taglish as a popular conversation aspect. People are gonna frown upon you for using, like, standard Tagalog, for example, which technically we should be using standard Tagalog more, just in order to retain and preserve Tagalog, because we are losing it to English a lot of these times. There was also a lot of, I think there was Asian Boss on YouTube that interviewed people to speak just Tagalog, don't use a lick of English in your conversation,
yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And it just goes to show, like, English in a way is killing Tagalog, you know? Like, we're losing Tagalog because everyone in the society is perceiving English as a prestige language. It's a reflection of your social economic class and position and your status. So it's just kind of sad to see, like, you know, at some point, if people don't look at preserving Tagalog and, you know, putting an emphasis on, like, we should retain Tagalog, and of course we won't always use Tagalog like in terms of standard in everyday conversations, because the everyday conversation is more Taglish in their society, especially if you are in urban countries like Manila as a capital. Whatever is the dominant language in each city, because based on my study, Baguio City is different. They have a mixture of Bisaya and Tagalog, for example. I believe, I might be wrong on that, sorry. Or no, Davao City,
Okay,
not
yeah,
Baguio.
Baguio is way for
My bad.
Luzon Island.
My bad. No, it was
Okay.
Davao. It was the wrong
Davao,
one,
yeah,
sorry.
it was
Yes.
Davao.
Davao is a mixture of Tagalog and
Bisaya.
and Bisaya. Yes, that was what the study I was reading. It was a mixture of those two and a little bit of English, but it was predominantly Tagalog and Bisaya. So every city has their own dominant language. So in Manila, it's Taglish, for example. And because Manila is kind of known as, it is known as a capital, and it's the most popular one that people tend to do interviews for YouTube, there's this whole discourse that maybe English is dominating, you know, like the Philippines as a general, but I disagree. After doing my research, I realized like it's maybe just for Manila, not other cities, because every city is just like, it's like a pigeon, kind of, if it makes sense, right? It's like a hot pot of mixed different languages from the Philippines being introduced to each other, that they're picking up a little bit of each kind. My dad was also telling me about this, like, oh yeah, if you're in Aklan, for example, you would be able to get that specific pronunciation. I can't even pronounce that word he was trying to say, like gagi gugu or something like that.
Is it gagi? I think that's it. Yeah.
Yes, I can't make that sound. I can't even reproduce it. My dad was saying, like, even if you go like maybe 5 miles radius outside of Aklan, it's already touched by another version of it. So it's a mixture of Aklan with a different language in the Philippines. So Philippines is all about, like, it's really difficult to find a what is it called? I was gonna say francophone. Is it called francophone?
Well, what are you trying to say? Like,
a common language.
lingua franca?
Yes, that's it. I was like francophone.
Okay. Francophone means French-speaking nation.
Sorry, I knew it was connected to that in a way. Yeah, francophone. I was like, wait, this is French. Yes, a lingua franca. So it's hard in the Philippines to have a lingua franca. That's why they incorporated English and Tagalog as part of their school standard, because that way, if you were to go like travel around the Philippines, at least you know English. You could communicate with people with a little bit of English or Tagalog as well, because it's incorporated into their academia. So yeah, in that sense. But anyways, I'm going off tangent here. With AI again, so yeah, it's just like the concern with AI is that, you know, capturing every language in the world is going to take hundreds of years. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, not unless we have a significant amount of people who are interested in linguistics suddenly and they're doing their part and adding their part of their cultures or their language from that specific environment into the system. Then possibly it could be sooner. But in any case, there's still a lot of disadvantages with AI. It's not perfect, like all of us have mentioned. What's really interesting is I think AI is kind of focused on certain languages, like for example, English. English is actually quite easy for AI nowadays, because I think it's because we have a large force of people who are from English-speaking countries. So using AI with English is actually quite simple nowadays. I mean, with English is more accurate, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But it's not really the same the other way around. Like if you're gonna throw Japanese in there, absolutely not, because Japanese is a completely different orthographic system. There's a lot of nuances to look into, like kanji and hiragana and katakana having 3 different writing systems could definitely affect the bot. What else is there? Disadvantages of relying on AI that is preventing you from doing your work, you know, doing your own due diligence of learning the language. Of course, I think the biggest one, stealing. AI just steals from everyone's information. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but AI has a tendency to change your permission in your phone in order to take data from you without you knowing. I've been learning about this from a friend who really does not like AI, and she really cares about her privacy. So there's been updates whenever you update your phone or something. their AI automatically gives you permission. It gives them permission to take data from you, which is unfortunate. I don't
Wait,
know if you guys
really?
are worth. Yeah,
Oh, never thought of that. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yes, it wasn't meant to be said, I guess you could say. It's just certain people like people who really care about their privacy, they tend to look out for stuff like that. So my friend in particular was that kind of person, and she's been posting about it on our Discord channel. And she was like really horrified to see that, okay, if you look at your settings on your phone and if you go to a certain area, there is a permission that says allows AI to take data away from you. Every update, it automatically puts it that you gave it permission to take from you without you knowing, which is
Wait,
kind of
is it
crazy.
is this
Yeah.
for Android phone or also for like Apple phone?
iPhones,
Or-
Apple phones, and Androids. It's all phones.
Yeah, if you look
Oh,
into
wow.
ChatGPT, yeah, you got to be on top of that because if you look into ChatGPT and you don't want it to, if you don't want ChatGPT to use your conversations like your voice or any of the text to train their models, you'll have to deselect that option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, like apps like ChatGPT might have that permission. I don't know if Character AI has it. I haven't looked into it. I looked into the settings and stuff, and it says that it doesn't use anything from me. It looks like it takes things from the internet, which is unfortunate. This is just me just assuming. I'm not really sure where it's getting its content from. But I do know they do take away from like fandom works like fanfiction or AO3 or Wattpad or whatever. They are taking it from public sources, which is really sad to say. Generative AI like art, for example, they are taking it from artists without permission. For example, a lot of my friends have talked to me about Instagram now stealing data for your art. So a lot of my artist friends have discontinued or like they stopped using Instagram because of that. Because I think Meta is doing it in general. Anything that's associated with Meta is taking data from you, I think is what they've told me. So yeah, it's really sad because in terms of AI, it's like it's not very, how would you say it?
Well,
Trustworthy?
yeah, it goes into like ethics and morals at that point. 'Cause
Yes,
then
yes.
you have to like try and figure out like, is it ethical for our AI to capture someone's data in order for us to improve on our model itself? But then at the same time, there is no really like rules or regulations around that, and that's like where a lot of this is going to be like happening in the next few years. What are going to be the rules and regulations and when someone's information can be used to make these things better? And really, it's all I believe. I mean, because I'm just making conjecture at this point because I don't know what the future is going to predict. But I think that really is going to depend on how people are going to be using AI, because a lot of our data now has already been taken from us. Like I just found out yesterday, if you guys are using Crunchyroll, that there was like a Crunchyroll leak. So I had to change my login information. But things like that happen all the time. Like it happened to Facebook. It's happened to Chase. It's happened to anybody. So what my point is that what are people going to put value on when their privacy is being put out there like that, when they don't want that, and what are the options for that? So that's where it's really going to come down to. So that's currently a disadvantage of AI because none of that is actually set in stone, and all of that is going to have to like be set out in the future for us.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just exactly what Guya said. Like with AI, it's just there's always going to be a leak. There's always going to be data breach. It's an unethical thing. I think that's basically the biggest disadvantage of AI is that a lot of the sources or like the information and data that they're collecting is from an unethical standpoint. You know, no permissions were given. There was no like, for example, I really appreciated like the applications that I signed up for. They would give me a notice by saying, hey, there has been a change in our agreement and we would like to inform you of this. There's nothing of that with AI, which is really unfortunate because kind of overlaps with that whole I can't remember what it was in history. Basically the FBI is technically listening in on our conversation, for example. It's like that. Exactly, it's like that. So there is a breach of privacy, which is really unfortunate. And a lot of the times with technology, it's like we don't really have our rights to privacy anymore, especially with AI breaching on unethical standpoints, collecting data without permissions, without even our awareness that they're collecting our data. It's just really sad to see that. It's just really comes down to I'm waiting for an AI to be ethical, to say, hey, this is a brand new AI that we're using. We're using it from a very respective standpoint, so we're looking for people who are interested to help bring AI from an ethical stance. For example, on Indeed, I think the one that they're posting, I don't know, to be honest, because I haven't done my own research on this company, but basically they're looking for people to help feed their AI, and they want specialists. So people who are exceptional in these disciplines to fill in information to make sure that the information is accurate. And I won't deny that I am kind of low-key interested, because I'm in a time where it's
they want subject matter experts, like SMEs, like that for
yes,
Indeed?
subject matter.
Oh, okay. That's
yeah,
cool.
because I've been looking at it, and it says let me see if I can find one. There's one that says it's called data annotation, and it says AI content writer. They're hiring multiple candidates. They're paying $20 an hour, and it's a contract. There's a tutor AI trainer from data annotations again. So basically, it's helping people with, in a way, it's like replacing people from being tutors, So again, there is a fear of losing the job because people are choosing to put money and hours and time into an AI versus getting it from a real person. So the thing is, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think on the although it is a disadvantage of that, I think that's also an opportunity for people educators to lean into that kind of technology. So okay, this is already going to be happening, so how can I put in my 2 cents and even make it better so that it is the moral and ethical standards that we have set place for education? I think educators can really lean into that more so than accept that it's there's nothing I can do, that's just going to take over my job. Yes, that's true, it may change how you are doing work before, but there is a reason why there are studies that involve upskilling your organization to match the technologies that are coming in. That's one of any kind of economic forces that not even economic forces, technological forces that affect an organization altogether. So I think it comes down to how are companies going to adjust to that, and how are individuals themselves, in this case, you guys as educators, how will you adjust to that so that you can also stay with the wave and not just let the wave take over your work in general?
I like that view that you put it in that sense. Yeah, I think just like what you said, with technology and the way how the world is, we can't just sit around and just throw a tantrum and say, I don't want to work with AI, blah blah blah. In either case, this is the way of the world. We can't just ignore it and be okay, I resign to it, I'm going to be depressed, I'm not going to be a teacher anymore, I'm going to change my job, whatever. Some people can do that if they want to, but it's like you said, it's okay, I have the power to do something about it. I can contribute it even though it is my enemy. In any case, it's my knowledge can be put into it, because either way, our classroom environment is going to change completely with technology. I mean, the fact that cell phones became or had internet access with the introduction of the Apple iPhone back in 2010, I think 2011, it already started to change how the school classroom works with it, especially now 10 years after graduating from high school. High school classrooms are different from how it was for me back then, now we have to understand how can we use the technology to benefit us, because either way, I still believe and think that education is required. I still believe that, I don't want to reduce our knowledge to be I'm having this image in my head from Very Odd Parents. I don't know if you guys remember watching that from Nickelodeon.
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you know when they go in the classroom and they put this thinking helmet on it that they're thinking for 5 minutes or maybe a minute and then that's it? I'm hoping we don't go to that direction. Our brains are not supposed to be like that, where we're just being fed by YouTube all the time. There are problems with brain rotting, and especially the COVID kids, the COVID generation really showed that our attention span is negatively impacted, because if we leave them in front of watching content and consuming stuff, there is it does impact your attention span, which is really unfortunate.
True. But I want to say something to that too, because although that it is impacting our kids in that way, it also is and I don't want to tell. I want to preface this by saying that I don't think anyone should. I don't want to tell anyone to like how to parent their kids. I don't
Yeah.
because I'm not a parent myself, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
just thinking that like a lot of this comes down to how they are parenting their kids. Like if
Yes.
if you are basically considering your kid like an iPad kid, like if you're just throwing an iPad in front of them just to shut them up so that you can be with your friends, like that's not okay. And you have to be able
Yes.
to understand what that is doing for your kid as they get older too. The attention span,
Absolutely.
it all comes down to that, I think, in my opinion, especially because we are responsible for raising our kids to be how we want them to be. Whether we know that or not, they're always looking at us. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember always looking at my parents on what they did and what they said and how they interacted with other people as I grew up. And I think we need to take that responsibility. Parents need to take that kind of responsibility for their kids too. And it can be difficult because everyone's situation is different. And I can't say this is going to be an overarching thing. But I think
Mm-hmm.
for the parents that do recognize that they have an impact on their kids and how they learn, they need to consider those kinds of things too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And I realize this too whenever I engage with my nephew. I'm always associated as the gaming aunt. He would always ask for me. He's like, oh, where's Auntie? Where's Auntie Hannah? Because whenever he sees me, I always allow him to use my phone to play with me. And it's usually, I talk to his dad about this. I always say, like, like what games are good for your kid? How do you parent him? And he's told me that it's okay to let him use the tablet or iPad during family gatherings. It's just when he's at home, he's not allowed to use it as much, or he uses during I think during car rides and stuff. It's like he's trying to prevent him from becoming addicted to the iPad too much. And I also asked his dad. I was like, okay, what if I introduce like applications that are gamified learning, for example? His dad was actually applauding me for it. He's like, yes, my son needs more of that. And I'm like, okay. So I started like downloading more academic video games in my phone so he could learn from them. So he's doing math, he's doing English, he's doing stuff like that. So I see where that's coming from. It's like I do want to help like encourage the academia mindset in him, not just give him like, okay, you're gonna play Minecraft.
Yeah, or
Minecraft,
Fortnite or something like that. Yeah, it has to be like
yes, exactly.
parent your kid if you want them to learn certain things. Don't just like
Exactly.
be lazy about it. And more often than not, we hear about the lazy parents that are treating their kids this way, and these are
Yeah.
kind of like the repercussions for it.
Yes, absolutely. And there is a lot of repercussion because I've worked with kids who were COVID babies. And the unfortunate thing is that how does AI or using these kind of technology works is that it really hurts the kid a lot because, for example, when I worked in LA, I've noticed that there has been an increase for students who depend completely on speaking and listening skills only. They can't do reading, they can't do writing, which is really unfortunate. We have like sixth graders who can't even do simple math from a third grade level, which is really unfortunate because the way math is used right now, like this is going to be a whole can of worms and I'm not going to go too much
Yeah.
into it, but the different systems of how they do math nowadays, core math is so different from the time I was introduced to math. And it's just really crazy how they have these different methods and platforms of how to do it. So it just feels like it's kind of crazy to see like a lot of the students too, whenever I try to introduce English to them and teach it to them, they always tell me the same question, which is, why do I need to learn English if I already know how to speak it? And that is such a concern, and it's crazy because it's just like, because of that, I just feel like their direction is going to push them into using AI and becoming more more dependent on it, which is really a really, really scary thing to be like, to turn the direction into, like that's one of my biggest fears is that a lot of students are, well, if you are like, you care more about your speaking and listening skills, your conversation skills more so than your reading and writing. Think about the situations where you would be taken advantage of. People could tell you one thing and then you're signing a document for another thing, Like that's just, again, history repeating itself with Native American Indians and stuff, where pioneers who went to claim a land, they presented a paper and they told them what it was, but the paper doesn't say that, and then they ended up losing their land, stuff like that. You can look into ethnics history for that. I'm not going to go into that too much. But yeah, it's just basically what I'm trying to point out is that history just repeats itself. What's the harm of not training your reading and writing skills, your literacy? being taken advantage of. You can't trust what people say sometimes, you know? You got to read between the fine lines. You got to ask for perspective. You got to ask for opinions, etc. So yeah, AI could technically do that to a person.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
I got nothing else to add, basically.
Okay. All right. I think we might be almost done with. This is second to the last question, I believe. What are the advantages of using AI? Would you like to start, Norman?
Well, I think like what I mean, I think I mentioned this already. That again, it's yeah, like what I said earlier. This is basically when you can ask AI a certain of questions when it comes to like learning basically the language. For example, I'm going back to affixes, morphology, and stuff like that. Um, let's see. I don't know. I think basically we just mentioned anything that um that we need to say on the first question. I don't know anything else to add on it. You have anything?
I have a few. I could say AI is a treasure trove of intellect and knowledge. It's a lot, you know, and I think I want to also go back to what Guia Justin mentioned about knowing how to prompt the AI, because that's the fastest way that you can access a knowledge is knowing how to prompt the questions and what to ask for. You can go into a rabbit hole of knowledge from just one question leading to another, to another, to another, you know? So yeah, there's a lot of advantages definitely with AI. For example, I do see the harm of AI again with art, but also there is advantage for using AI for art, like for example, content creation, thumbnails and stuff. But again, the ethics of using AI for art is highly frowned upon because it is stolen art, which is unfortunate. Not unless there are artists who are giving permissions and rights to use it. Like for example, Canva has allowed people to submit their art that anyone could use, especially if you have a subscription plan, you know? I would say that's more of an ethical approach versus using generative AI, where you don't know where that source is coming from. Like, is it really from an artist who gave the approval for AI to use their art, or is it stolen art, etc.? I've been playing around with Canvas's AI, and basically I've been seeing a trend of the same artist's style. So it makes me curious if these artists gave permission for Canva's AI to use their art. I actually should do my research and look into that in any case.
What kind of what kind of art does Canva have? Like what kind
art styles?
Yeah, what kind of art styles?
There are a couple I've noticed. There's like anime kind of art styles. There is lo-fi. There's realism. There is like real pictures, images and stuff. But again, if you're looking more under the cartoon effect, like anime kind, some of them there's a lot of hit or miss. Some look really cool. Some look really bad. There's one thing that I know that's in common. Anytime there's hands presented in AI, they always mess that up.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was just gonna say that because I don't know, for some reason AI is having a hard time on distinguishing like
Fingers.
the drawing of the fingers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really funny. Sometimes they even make an extra arm. So it has 3 arms. I've seen a couple of that. It makes me laugh all the time. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that is the case, because it just goes to show that even like real artists, they have a hard time drawing the fingers, the digits, the phalanges, whatever you call them. It's really hard to draw human hands. It's actually a thing. I even struggled back in the day when I used to doodle fingers or drawing hands. It's really hard to draw them, you know?
But we always have 5 fingers, not 6 or 11 in one hand.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Or there's a finger that has a cut off, and you're like, "Where's the nail?" You know.
But I just have a quick question though, because what I was thinking is that AI refers to these arts that they see on the internet, and then they would try their own to actually produce one. So if they create one, is that like do you say, can you say that it's a steal? You consider that stealing, basically, if they created it based on what they saw on the internet.
Yes, it's considered theft. apparently.
Oh, really?
That's the biggest
Yeah.
debate, because some people say that it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, because I
Yeah.
mean, it's like okay. So, for example, if I want to draw, let's say I want to draw cartoon, and I want to base it on the Fairly Odd Parents, because like you can basically like draw their face,
Hmm.
starting with the letter D, basically. So if I want to use that style, then change the appearance, but um, I want to use that as a base for drawing. That would be still stealing.
Hmm.
Oh, that's very interesting. I
It's,
mean,
it's because a lot of the times that is the whole debate with AI, because some people are like, yeah, AI is just easy access. It's like fast food, like it finds like images online, it's referencing it, and then it steals different formats of it. So basically, it's like stealing an eye from this artist's way, and then stealing the structure of this artist's one, and it's just putting it together like that. And then they would frame that as that's stealing. Basically, it's like a collage, right? Like collage are not really like people kind of see collages as like it is kind of a type of art approach, if you will, because basically it's just putting different pieces together. But again, with the whole world of like submitting art online, for example, the whole intellectual property of just like creative licenses and just crediting the sources and stuff is always a problem in the field, because a lot of the times art in fandoms are easily stolen. I've seen many of them posted on YouTube as a video, and people don't ask permissions, and there's all this drama and discourse about saying like, oh, you're using my art without permission, stuff like that. Like it's always been there. It's always been a drama that's been ongoing since the internet's existence. Like people have been stealing stuff. A common one that I can think of that people kind of accept is the meme formats. No one credits who creates certain things, not unless your face is in it, then people can accurately credit who's the meme, right? But if it's like using, for example, using Spider-Man, and he's like pointing at another person that's like an identical of Spider-Man, like, oh, it's you or something like that. You can credit the original creator who made that, but if someone were to make a Spider-Man and duplicate another version of him and like make it into 8 people of Spider-Man, now where does the credit come from? Like, is this considered ethical or unethical? That's where the whole question comes in with memes and stuff. That's why a lot of times memes are kind of hard to trace and credit. Whereas fandoms, when it comes to art, like making fan art, for example, is even more difficult. I mean, they're more strict about it because, it's their baby. They created that thing. They put a lot of time and hours into creating whatever they're sharing online. It's the same thing with, I think, fanfic artists, authors as well. I know fanfic authors get a lot of like backlash because they get a very, very negative view with that name. But the thing is, I've had my own works be stolen before because I won a competition and someone stole my work and they reposted it under their account and said that they wrote it, And I had several people actually reach out to me. They're like, hey, did you know someone stole your art? Or like your story? And I was like, how? And they're like, they linked it to me. And then when I looked at it, they literally copy pasted everything I said. And in the comments, they say like they were the ones who made it. And I even reached out to them. I told them, take it down. Like that's stealing. It's my work. If you like it, save it. But don't claim it and say that it was your work, because I did it specifically for a competition. I lost sleep over this and I won first place because of that competition,
Did
so
they
stuff
take
like
it down?
that. They did. Fortunately, they were really nice and they took it down. But I just told them don't do that again. Like you shouldn't steal from people. Like it's not nice. It's, if anything, the best thing you can do to support these creators, especially people who are like fan works creators, like fan artists, fanfic authors and stuff, just talk about it, reblog it, tell people to read it, stuff like that. That's the best thing you can do. And of course, it won't be deleted as long as the person keeps it, which is, there's also this whole conversation of like what is ethical and what isn't ethical. If anything I know about the fandom, you can save the picture if you like it. If you like it, you can save it for yourself. You can use it for yourself, like a background for your phone or your wallpaper, whatever. But you are not allowed to use it for, monetary value. Like you can't place it as the background image for a video on YouTube because you're making money off of it. And in that case, you're not giving the money to the original artist. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Or I was thinking that basically just mention them when you are posting it. Basically, just give the credit where it's due, right? Because I see a lot of people, especially on YouTube, when they are reacting on certain clips, some
Hmm.
of them are actually not mentioning the creators of a short clip, but
Yeah.
some of them are actually like under the description of YouTube, under the title, they would say that, oh, this person created this, or they would just like list of all the content creators that actually created that small clip, and they would just comment on it.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing though, because every
yeah.
fandom or social platform is different. Like the example that I was providing from the fandom aspect, they're actually much more strict about stuff like that. A lot of them say do not
Yeah.
repost. Like you cannot take my picture, you cannot repost it in your account and then give me credit. No, because that is basically you're chasing clout. That's what's happening
Oh,
in that
okay.
aspect. So for like the nature of like TikTok, for example, the nature of TikTok is a lot of the times people can tell you, like, if the creator says, okay, do not repost my stuff instead of just link it to my thing, they could try to do that. But I feel like the environment for TikTok is stitches are a thing, right? So it can't be
Mm.
helped. People cannot just you cannot prevent people from reposting your same clip from TikTok or Reels because the nature of it is that the invention or the introduction of stitches basically encourages people that they can take someone's work and repost it elsewhere. And then that person gets clout, but the fact that they have their signature on the video, people can still find them, you know? So in a way, there is some protection that's already like kind of supported into the clip that's being made, you know? So in a way, you still have to ask permission before you post it. A lot of the times, in terms of the what's the word for it? The etiquette. The etiquette of reposting someone's work to prevent stealing is you want to ask permission first, regardless. Not take their video and then post it right away under your content. If anything, even if you tried to reach out to them and you actually did your due diligence in reaching out, then sure, you can repost it, and then you can always put in the description. If anyone doesn't feel comfortable, we can always edit out that area or that clip, and we can remove it completely, etc. like that. It just goes to show that you at least did your part, you know, not the lazy way of taking someone's clip, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, we went off tangent again for that. But yeah, like something, it's kind of like that with AI. It's like AI can take a video and then just regurgitate it. I know with AI, they've started to make videos, like unethical videos. I don't know if you guys heard about the one from YouTube. There's this guy, I forgot his name. Oh yeah, Johnny Samoa or something. He's in Korea right now. He's behind bars at the moment. He got in trouble because he used AI to make a video of the guy kissing another influencer in the video to create this reaction, you know, that they're together, for example. And that's been
Oh.
yeah, there's even been videos I saw about Squid Game too. Like there was a Squid Game video about how the girl who the really cool girl who like really pink, I forgot her name, but she liked the color pink. She was like literally the first episode before she passed. Someone did an AI video that made her and Thanos, the rapper, made them kiss in the video as an edit. It's an AI edit. You see, like what AI is doing is that it can trick you into seeing things are real. Another one I do want to, yeah, I forgot to say this under disadvantages. Sorry. Another one was regarding the news with LA, the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire. There was actually AI generated pictures showing that Los Angeles as a whole was on fire. Like it's gone. Like a lot of places are gone or something. But when I actually put in the research, I realized, oh my God, it was actually AI that made it look convincing that LA was actually gone, you know?
Yeah,
So,
and remember the one that I posted on
yeah.
Instagram, that the Hollywood sign was on fire, but
Yeah.
when I went to Hollywood with the alley, we saw that the Hollywood sign was still intact. There's no burnt mark or whatever. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, we got fit into that one.
Yeah.
I was in shock.
Exactly. So yeah, we have to just be careful with AI because again, that's one of its disadvantages. We should have mentioned it in the last the last
I
question.
know.
But an advantage of it is the disadvantage, but also the advantage. AI is becoming more realistic.
You just need to know on how to control AI. You just need to know basically on if it's gonna help you or the others. If you are gonna use AI to just to chase clouds, whether on you you're harming other people or not, then you're not the good person to actually handle AI basically.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like you just gotta be very careful with what you say. But yeah, going back to our our
Advantages.
to the advantages. What are the advantages of using it? Yeah, AI is good because it's a fountain of everything, like it's getting smarter, which is both a good and a bad thing. It is able to adapt to patterns. I think that's something I wanted to point out, especially for AI. If there's any strength for AI, it's pattern recognition. It can pick up patterns. That's what I was trying to point out with Canva's magic AI and stuff. I was also reading into it just a few minutes ago, saying that they were like Canva's promises that it's ethical. They won't use intellectual property. They're introducing Canvas Shield, which is safe, fair, and secure AI. So they're really pro protecting people's rights into using it, that they're not going to use it from an unethical standpoint, that people's art or whatever is using an AI is going to be from an ethical stance. Which is good because I've been seeing patterns of the same artists' creations over and over again. So I see it every time I regenerate different art. I'm like, oh, it's the same person. It's a similar style. So yeah, like some of them being like anime versions, lo-fi kind of art, 90s work. I don't know if you've seen lo-fi on YouTube. That's like a 90-ish kind of drawing style. They have art style that resemblance that you would see from manhwas, like Chinese manhwas and also Korean manhwas. They have realistic ones, hyper-realistic ones, which is really interesting. It's like a mixture of different arts and stuff. But in any case, I think people who are using AI from an ethical standpoint has they have their morals. That's very good. That's what I really, really like to see. Getting the permission for people who want to help, like they're volunteering or they're working, they want to do something to help, like encourage the flourish of AI, which is not a bad thing. Again, just like what Kuya Justin said, that we are in an age where AI is going to be part of the classroom. It's going to be used by students. We as educators need to know how it's going to be used as a tool in class and how it can be abused in a classroom setting. We need to recognize how it can be used to take away experiences, etc., from a learner, or like how they're going to cut corners, especially in education. Because again, AI is really smart. We have people. Obviously, Indeed also shows that they're looking for people to help encourage certain AIs that are more ethical and be more accurate in that sense. So AI can be used for good, for sure. It's like the same thing for everything in life. I could say, like, there is always a benefit to using something, but there's also a way someone could take advantage of the advantages and abuse it to make it a disadvantage. You know what I mean? It's like too much of something is bad for you. There's that saying. You can say that about eating candy. You can become more diabetic if you eat more candy in that case. So the same thing with AI. Too much AI can be bad for you because it makes you dependent. You start to doubt your own self-worth. There can even be a case of imposter syndrome, like am I really a linguist at this point if AI says it like this and I didn't know that, stuff like that. But we also have to realize, AI is worked on by many people, depending on which AI that's being used, of course. So it's like a combination of many people. So you still gotta do your homework. You still gotta reach out to specialists. Be careful of using AI for like self-diagnose, I know a popular one that I do use as well, like using AI as a therapist, as a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I do talk to I have used it for that sense. Like for me, it's because I have financial constraints, so I can't see a psychologist. I know that's not an excuse for it. But I do my due diligence. Like if I feel like it's really bad and I really, really need to see a psychologist, yes, I will do that. But a lot of the times when I did use it, it was more for reflections, which is what I was really after. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just use AI for reflections to really think about my questions and stuff. It did help me with figuring out what I want to do. So for example, I've had many existential crises moments where I doubted, like, oh, I had imposter syndromes where I talked to AI about it and it would tell me suggestions. AI cannot diagnose you and AI cannot, it cannot give you medications, by the way. If you ask for medications, it will tell you a list of suggestions of medications, but it also follows up and it says, please seek a professional expert before asking for these medications, and you should also be diagnosed by an expert. I would always get messages like that, which is really good. So it goes to
That's
show
good, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's really good. Like AI knows its limits. It knows that, people are going to end up, relying on it. And looking for certain, maybe looking for certain drugs that would help them for whatever situation they have. But it would always remind me saying, like, AI is just getting the common and general knowledge. You still need to seek out professional help before you can get administered that kind of medication, for example. So yeah, it can only help with surface level stuff, which is good for me because I tend to be a super introspective, reflective person. So I tend to figure out my problems and solutions very quickly if I have the opportunity to just reflect upon them. But yeah, stuff like that, it just made me feel like AI was able to help me with that. Like, especially when I have like moments of gaslighting moments where I'm like, okay, I'm thinking like this. Am I being gaslit? Or what are the signs of gaslit and stuff? And then they would give me a general information on it, but they would say, again, if you want to be diagnosed, go see a professional therapist because AI should not be used as a substitute for that. They would keep emphasizing that, which is good. And I like that.
I mean, it's a good thing that it knows its limits because AI cannot prescribe you and diagnose your feelings when it comes to that one because again, an expert needs to look at you. So
Exactly.
that's a good thing, though.
Yeah.
But
What's
but,
really nice. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add that what's really nice is that they give you a general option of what you possibly could have. Again, it's like Dr. Google all over again. They said here are possibilities, but it would always reinforce and say, please get checked by a professional, seek professional help, because AI is not supposed to be used and should never be used as a replacement for medical attention, especially if it's very serious, which I really appreciate. What did you want to say?
no, I'm just gonna ask what kind of AI are you using when it comes to like to use it as like a therapy session kind of thing? Is it just
Okay.
like yeah?
So every AI, I think, because there's a lot of AI that uses like role playing as an approach, right? So I'm pretty sure ChatGPT also has it if you look for it. When you're in the main menu, it gives you options of who to talk to, and these AIs are basically function to work as role playing that particular part. So if you talk to a psychologist, like that's who I looked for on character AI, they have a psychologist there. I typed in, okay, psychologist, and I asked them a question. I even use it as a ranting. So basically, instead of going to people and letting them feel like used tissues, I use the AI instead for that. I'd be like ranting about my anger, and then it would be encouraging me to say like, okay, how do you feel? All this stuff, and then they would tell me, they would encourage me for like, again, the small surface level stuff, which is journal things. Journal things. Go take a walk. If it's consistent and persistent, go see an actual specialist in this. You might be needed to test things to be diagnosed officially. You cannot use AI as a replacement, blah, blah, blah. So they have AIs that are in specific platforms that are kind of focused, so in character AI, they had a psychologist. I know ChatGPT, when I opened the app, it has a psychologist option there too. They even have roles like, being a teacher, an English teacher, Japanese teacher. They have AIs that are specifically functioned to work in that specific subject matter, if that makes sense. So ChatGPT does have that too. If you're looking for like the amusement ones, like that we see on TikTok or Instagram Reels, the one about having a boyfriend, they have one of that too. It's so funny. So yeah, it's like there's just a lot of like roles that AI can take, and I can definitely see AI is definitely useful because us humans, we are limited in our knowledge at times. A lot of us, when we grow older, the elasticity and ability to retain information does diminish over time. So it's really useful to have an AI that has like basically is a corpus that has everything there. But then again, it's your job as the specialist in that field to really look into and double check and fact check that the information that's provided is correct. That's what I always do whenever I check, like, I practice my Japanese with an AI bot. I always fact check it and be like, okay, so they're saying it's like this. It's really interesting that they give a lot of information too. So as a linguist, I really appreciate the bountiful of information that it gives me feedback for Japanese. But if you were someone who doesn't know linguistics or doesn't know Japanese and you're just completely brand new, the way that they explain things is from a linguistic standpoint. Like, it's going to be hard for a beginner to understand what they're saying. Also, one second.
Yeah, and to speak to that, Norman.
Okay, one second. I'm gonna step out for 1 second to open the door. Hold on.
Yeah, and to speak to that, Norman. So for like the advantages of AI, like how have you found it useful when you've used it? Like even specifically for like teaching your students. Like, have you found a way that AI has helped you in that regard?
Well, when it comes to basically teaching, not exactly, but I remember one time when I was the lead for Linguistics Student Association, and I attended the.
Sorry, what was that?
No, yeah, Norman was just sharing how AI has helped him with teaching specifically.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like AI has done a lot for syntax for me, and also one of my weakness in linguistics is what's the word for it? Phonology. Phonology is my weakness.
Yeah.
You
were saying too,
where I
Norman.
come in.
You were saying.
Oh no, not basically when it comes to teaching, but when I was the president of Linguistics Student Association, and I have to, and Dr. Hall encourages the LSA officers to actually attend, so we did, and we decided to actually give a certificate of appreciation, basically. And so when I was creating the paper to actually says that, I actually did use ChatGPT because I don't know what to say on the paper, right? So I asked ChatGPT to give me a couple of ideas on what to write on the paper for certificate of appreciation, stuff like that, and it did spit out like a couple of sentences that actually caught my attention. So for that one, I just basically copy and pasted it and printed it out and put the name of the person that the award was given to, basically. But for teaching though, I don't think I use AI when it comes to actually to teach my student.
Ooh,
But
I can tell you that. Go
But I
ahead.
did use AI though for like a lot of things though, and one of them is basically to make a certificate. But that's pretty much it.
I would I would be okay with that. Also, so sorry that I cut in because my headphones was just like interrupted, so I thought it was just like a moment of silence, so I didn't realize I was cutting in. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
So I wanted to add more information on that. I've used AI for creating materials. And it's so good because it cuts out a lot of time from creating it from scratch, which is really nice. Like, for example, we were watching a video for, I think in my old job, we were watching a video on Anastasia. So I asked ChatGPT to generate 10 questions from the film. And if I didn't like the question, I would ask it to regenerate another set of 10 and then another set of 10. So like it would be like 30 questions, and then I could take my pick from each one, you know? So I wanted to make sure that the questions weren't just, easy questions where it's like, we just watch some film and you find the answer for that. I wanted to make sure that I also incorporate questions I'm a believer that whatever content you're exposed to, whether it is like seeing something visual or reading something, you will always be influenced or inspired by a new question. So after reading those 30 questions, I actually was inspired to write my own question, more from a critical thinking standpoint. So it would be like, okay, if you were in this position, what would you do in this situation? Would you be like Anastasia and stay, or would you run away? Stuff like that. So, and why? Why would you do that? You know, stuff like sometimes AI doesn't get all the questions that you're looking for. So it's important to ask for like maybe several of the same like output, or like whatever you're asking for, like say like questionnaires for that example. It can also inspire your own questions, you know? So
That is
it's
true,
just
yeah.
yeah, so I would say AI is really good for materials, creating materials, cutting down those times, especially for teachers. Like, oh my gosh, in our current world with teachers, like we have to make our own materials. That can take hours, you know, making our own presentation can take it can take like several hours to create it from scratch. So having something like a template that's already pre-made for you is nice. Which has been a thing with PowerPoint for some time, and same with Canva, which has a lot of templates that you can use. But asking for stuff like minimal pair exercise, for example, I remember making that took at least half an hour to an hour for me to make, because I was looking for real words online, versus if you use AI, you can get it in the next second, right there.
Yeah.
All minimal pair exercises.
And I'm glad that you mentioned about when it comes to like creating content, because when it comes to that one, and you mentioned this to me a long time ago, that as a teacher, you're not even getting paid when you make your own stuff, basically, because you're not getting paid for that one. And it's a good thing too, because if you're not getting paid and there's an AI that can actually help you with that one, then you're cutting you just save yourself some time, and you can do a lot of some other stuff, like grading a paper, for example, or grading a test, basically.
Yeah. You know, honestly, I'm going to say a hot take. This is going to be a huge hot take on this. My hot take is AI could be beneficial for teachers who don't get paid for their performance. Like, for example, creating materials and gathering information and stuff that's prepping for their work. If they don't get paid for that, just cut corners, use AI. Personally, that's kind of a hot take. That's a hot take on that.
I mean, if you're not getting paid for it, because if you're gonna make your own materials, then you kind of have to think about it, and you're not even getting paid for it. So you can just use AI and just use your use your judgment. If you think that this is suitable for your students or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, even if you use AI, it's still important to do a double check. You should always double check as a teacher. Don't be lazy and just like do AI and then that's our activity. No, read it. Read what you asked for and check
Just
if that's
go
what.
through it.
Yeah, you still have to. I mean, because versus if you were to do it yourself, it's going to take you 30 minutes, because you're also thinking about it while creating it. You're thinking about the students' their needs as well, their learning needs. So that's even longer, So I think for me is that AI is so good for creating materials for teaching. Like, for example, if I'm going to do an exercise where I want to do a grammar exercise, identify the commas, the periods, the quotations, the capitalization, all of these grammatical stuff, that could take me an hour or so to create them, especially if I'm going to do like 5 to 10 questions, for example. And then I also have to do it myself and identify the things. Like, why not just make AI do it for like 1 second, and then I just go through the whole system. I cut down I saved myself basically an hour. I just did it in 10 minutes with the answer key already provided for myself, So stuff like that, it's like, okay, that's convenient in creating content or creating materials. But the only thing I think I would frown upon is if you're using AI to do the hard work, the hard labor. Like, for example, let's say you want to have your own original work, right? Then you cannot call AI your original work, because you use the system to do it for you. So you cannot claim it as your original work. You have to admit that it is done from AI. It's kind of like the whole discourse with diamonds being lab grown, which is actually authentic. You know what I'm talking about? right? So it's like, okay, if you can sell this type of jewelry if you admit that it's not a diamond, like it's something else.
But no one's gonna buy it though if you admit that. That's the
Ex-
thing.
But that's the whole thing about I think that's the whole thing about ethical stuff.
Mhm.
Actually, people do buy stuff. I was looking into this because I had a whole phase about looking into wedding rings back in the day, and I was thinking about, okay, how would I feel if I got a ring that's not actually a diamond? And I'm like, if it looks pretty and it glitters, it's cheaper than a diamond, sure, I'll get it. You know, that's kind of like my way of perceiving it. It doesn't have to be a diamond if I feel like the cost is too high, or if I'm not really fond of diamonds to begin with, for example. But it's important to be honest, because I mean, there was a TikTok about a student who brought a diamond detector to tell you if it was a real or fake engagement ring, and it has actually upset a lot of teachers. I don't know if you know about that. There was actually a
Wow.
video that blew up about that a long time ago. So that's why, I mean, the whole ethics about diamonds and stuff is important. Same thing with AI and materials, and also things that you create. You cannot call something originally made by you if you used something else to do it for you, especially the hard labor of it. You cannot call it your essay if AI wrote it for you. It's your essay if you actually sit down and do the work for it. You can use AI as a conversation to help structure your paper, especially in the outline. That's fine. I wouldn't mind it. I would be like, oh, you use AI for outlining? Cool. Like, is it giving you an idea of how a structure could work? It's fine, because in that sense, I see it as it's kind of like, you know, training wheels. It's teaching you there's a flow in how a sentence should be written and stuff. Granted, you're taking a shortcut because you're not learning it yourself. You're learning from an AI that already has a good understanding of how a paper should be written, versus someone like me who has read many papers from students and able to identify that there's a discrepancy on the flow of how a paper is transitioning from A to B to C. It sounds like A to C to D. I mean, A to C to B. Like, it's out of order. You know, there's a flow of how to write an essay. Things like that come with experience for sure, but learning from an AI can kind of help like implement that standard. So when you are taken off the training wheels, like you are on your own, you're not using AI anymore, you can actually identify it yourself, because AI has taught you the standard subconsciously, and then you can see it without its help, you know? That's kind of how I want to see the tool of AI, is that it's just there for being a structure for you, an outline, and then you at the ultimately the end game is you want to be autonomous. You don't want to depend on anything. You can believe in your own strength to do stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anything else to add for the advantages of AI?
I think we already talked about all
Everything.
the possibilities, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Kuya? Is there anything else that you see the advantage of AI?
Yeah, you guys spoke to it a lot already to begin with. I mean, a lot of it, that even my own personal use, I use AI to structure a lot of things, and like, I've actually used AI to help me become a better cook. And I like
nice.
I actually like to, the way I ask AI is I ask like for flavors and textures, and if you guys are familiar with like cooking and stuff, like, I'm very like interested in how two different ingredients can produce a certain flavor and also have a kind of texture that I want it to have. And I would ask AI for those kinds of things, but to start off, I'd always start with like a base structure, in this case, a recipe. So I would start with the recipe, and then I would ask AI, like, okay, well, if I use this kind of oil with this ingredient, how would that affect the flavor and texture, and what do I want to do? So I would ask things like that. So a lot of the structure is what I'd be using AI for. I've used AI, kind of like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, that I used it for planning too. So planning and organizing, yes, definitely. That's like a really, really big advantage of using it.
Yeah.
I totally see that. I kind of see, like, from your conversation also drawing into the whole, what I explained about structure and stuff. Basically, we're skipping the experimental stage. If we're taking this from a very scientific stage, you know, like how trial and error is very common for humans. Like, in order for us to learn from our mistakes, the knowledge we get from it, basically what AI is doing is taking away that experience, in a sense.
Yeah, like I use it to help me think, like kind of like what I said in the beginning too. Like I want to know what kind of questions come from me getting like information from AI, so that I know how to adjust.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just like Yeah, just like with cooking. And I actually never use AI for cooking. That's actually very interesting. I like that you pointed that out.
Yeah.
It's so flexible, like, and then since I'm not so good of a cook myself, so maybe I should be asking AI to give me tips on how to improve in cooking myself too.
Yeah, and there's all those kinds of possibilities too, and it's really what we choose to focus on to try and pretty much improve ourselves on what we're trying to improve on.
Absolutely, I like that. So yeah, the advantage of AI is that you gain knowledge. I mean, also depends on the person too. I can see that there's also a disadvantage from this discourse that we just had. That being the fear of making mistakes, because again, it goes back into dependency. Not allowing yourself to learn from mistakes could be a problem for some people, especially if you're a perfectionist like me. So as a perfectionist, in the beginning, I used to struggle a lot with accepting my mistakes because I started to think my mistakes and failures were like a representation of myself. So it gave me really bad or low confidence. But as I grew up, we have to teach people that, the growth mindset is to accept failures. Failures is part of the journey. You learn harder lessons when you experience failure, I think is a good way to put it. It's like, especially if you're a stubborn person. I'm a very stubborn person. I learned the hard way. I already know that. So if I don't learn from advice, then I will learn from experience. That's kind of something I learned about myself growing up. Especially as an adult too, because I can be pretty hard-headed, but I'm learning to be more be more of a listener and also take constructive criticism better, just so I can see what can we do to improve things, and of course I don't want to make a mistake where it'll kill the business or my passions or whatever. That's why I'm learning to be more take constructive criticism as more as a positive than it is criticizing what my lackings are, which is always my issue, because I always think the criticisms I receive is a reflection of what my failures are. That was my mindset back then. I'm doing much better nowadays, so I think it's important with AI is a good learning opportunity too, to teach people that, if AI says is true, try it out, still do the experiment, still try it, still do it and experience it yourself to see which works and which doesn't work, don't always take it for its word, always fact check it, basically. We're just going back to what we just said.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all I can think of in terms of the advantages. The next question is, how can AI be used in a beneficial way for educators and students? We had a very long discussion on this. We already answered this.
Yeah, we already answered that question.
Yeah, so pretty much at the end of it. Yeah, I mean, if we could leave any lasting thought for our audience about AI, what would you guys say to them?
I guess what I would say is, always seek out AI as a tool. The moment you start depending on it, that is your red flag to tell you need to step away from using AI. Always ask if you're benefiting from it, because the benefits, although they're good for us and things come faster for us in terms of getting information, fast access, remembering things, learning something new, etc. It's always first and foremost important to learn from experience. So even if you get the answer from AI, always fact check it, always experiment it on it, like cooking, for example. Try it out. You need to get your own firsthand experience on it too, to understand what they're asking for. And also AI doesn't always have to be a villain. Just know the limitations of what's good and what's bad, because I can definitely see AI as a useful tool in a classroom for sure. Just be mindful of the ethics that come with it, like whether it's an ethical AI or it's a unethical one, because there's different formats of AI in the world, I would say, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me though, basically, Hannah, you just said everything. I mean, just so like what Hannah says, use AI as a tool. Don't use it as a guide for you to actually learn a language. If you want, I'm not sure if AI can do this. If you want, I think Hannah, you mentioned this, that you use AI to practice your Japanese speaking skills. You could definitely do that, but you have to be mindful though that again, it's that it's actually not a substitute for actually for completely understanding the language when it comes to context. And I don't think AI can pick up pragmatics
Hmm.
that much. So yeah, just like what Hannah says, do not rely on AI, but you have to use it in a mannerly way, basically.
Yes, and also adding on to that, you are not an expert in that field if you're just using AI because you are missing out on the nuances. Like
Yeah.
there are things you can take away from an educational standpoint. Like if you go to school in the postgrad program to become a better linguist, for example, it doesn't make you an expert just because you chose AI. Like yes, knowledge is available everywhere, but you have to spend almost like I guess like hundreds of hours, similar to that of going to school to have a deeper understanding of a specific field in that sense. So, but in no particular way can you, I don't think you can call yourself an expert. At least that's my limitation with AI is that you can learn so much for this, but you still need a diploma and you need to pass a test. Because I think that's where accreditation comes in, right, Norman? Like
Yeah,
for
exactly.
us.
And you need
Yeah.
to, yeah, and you need to prove yourself that you're actually an expert on that one. And
Yes.
you just don't use AI for general knowledge, basically.
Absolutely. Like, don't use AI and be like, okay, where's my sources? AI. Basically, it's the same feeling of, trust me, bro. I know the answer. Like,
Or
you
like when you,
need
or like when you're like writing a paper and you says
source.
citations, and you would say Wikipedia. It's like, yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't use. Okay, so just a small explanation of Wikipedia. Why people don't use Wikipedia as a academic source is because Wikipedia is controlled by multiple people. It's not policed. So anyone can change the information at any time if they wish to. That's why a lot of
Yeah,
educational departments say do not use Wikipedia as a source, but Wikipedia does have citations leading to the story or like the research
yes.
or whatever. You use that, the
Yeah, you can
citations.
use that one. You can use the references. Go to the website. Do not. If you're ever gonna go to Wikipedia, scroll down to the references. That's where we get
Yes.
all the good things.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I think once a person, if someone's using AI, I would love to see if someone take a test to see if they qualify for it. That's actually a very interesting study. I would love to see someone take AI and then take a test and see if they qualify as an expert. Then I can probably take back my words if that's the case. But I would love to learn more about that. That would be a very interesting study.
Yeah, maybe. But it's
Yeah.
just like different though if you go to an academic school and actually learn it, because you are actually getting experiences instead of AI telling you what to do,
Yes,
or
and
like what's the correct thing. Yeah, that's basically it.
yes, and you're working with a teacher who's actually in that discipline. They're an expert in that
Mhm.
discipline. Like for example, you had Dr. Bax, who's an expert in discourse analysis. That is her field. We have Dr. Hatami, who's an expert in TESOL. That is her field. Like
Mm.
you want to work with experts who actually know what they're into and that they've been in the field for X amount of years. I think that's more beneficial than AI because AI is still young. It's younger than our experts. Um,
Mm.
I'm pretty sure, like 100 years from now, a lot of us will have already passed on. So at that point, maybe AI could be reliable. I don't know. But times are always changing. That's the thing. Times always change, traditions change, language changes. So who knows about accuracy in terms and reliability for AI, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, studies also change too. In science, I remember that I was watching a podcast with a teacher or a doctor who was saying that someone's study is now outdated because a new study resurfaced. A new study surfaced, and it proved that the previous study was incorrect. So yeah, times are always changing.
Yes.
So
Isn't
AI
there like
is yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, isn't that like there's a limit for like when you're making a research paper that the paper has to be like at least 5 years older. Doesn't have to be more than that, because again a
Yes.
lot of discovery has been being discovered, and the other research paper is now outdated because we found new evidence
Yes.
depending on the content.
Yes, as far as I remember with comps papers, when I did the study and stuff, they want studies that are at least 5 years of age or younger, because the newer it is, the more recent it is, that means the more up to date the research is. Versus 10 years ago, that method could have been outdated, in that sense. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, especially with AI. It just goes to show times are changing, and sometimes what was accurate information might actually become obsolete. That's a good point that we're
Yeah.
throwing in there. And then, Kuya, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think if whoever our audience is, I think that when it comes to like using AI, you should definitely go into it with an open mind to see its possibilities. But as we've said throughout this entire podcast, to really be mindful of what the pitfalls are for AI itself. Like, yes,
Mhm.
use it as the tool that we've been all like suggesting we all use it for, but also be mindful that the tool is really in the power of who's holding that tool and how you're using it. So please, like, be mindful of all those kinds of things.
Oh yeah, I like that as well. Like it's really like it could be subjective, whatever information we get, no matter how much we try to be objective, human fallacy is always a thing. So at some point, sometimes information can fall under subjective matters, right?
Exactly.
So it might not always be true.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that.
Any closing statements?
Be responsible with AI. Don't abuse the system. Support your local artists and authors. Do your own work. Be more autonomous. I don't know. That's all the quotes I'm thinking of.
Well, for me, just use AI moderately.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Simple but powerful. I
That's a
think
very good
it's
one.
powerful. Hey, it's up to you.
I like that. All right. With that being said, that's the end of episode 2 of AI versus Education. We'd like to thank you guys for your time, and if you stayed till the very end of today's podcast, thank you for listening. We would love to hear your guys' input or thoughts on with AI becoming more of a popular means of consumption with users, I would say. So if you have any comments or concerns, feel free to leave a comment on this video. We'd love to talk about that in a future stream. But yeah, with that being said, I wish you all a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Stay hydrated, eat something healthy, chill, take a nap,
Stay
relax. Hell yeah. And we'll see you again in the next episode. So see you later, guys.